Wow, what an inspiring day. So many great presentations and fascinating bodies of work, and coming at this subject from different perspectives. So it's my job to kind of try and wrap it up in a way, but also to manage to find as many as possible artists from the exhibition to have this panel close the session. And I actually just have one question. Well, I've got a couple more backup, but we think that will be one question to each of you will take most of the time that we have. And I would like to also have time for questions from the audience. But first of all, just to briefly introduce, you'll hear a little bit of there'll be some repetition here from some of the artists that have already spoken, but to briefly introduce everybody that's sitting here. From my right, Gudrun Bielz, born in Linz, lives in London and is an artist and researcher working with film, video, sculpture, and multimedia installation. And the works that we're showing in the Radical Software exhibition were made collaboratively with Ruth Schnell, who's sitting next to her. Ruth is born in Kerckhoven, an artist and curator, and from 2010 to 2023, she was head of the Department of Digital Arts at the Universität für Angewandte Kunst here in Vienna. Inge Borchardt worked at Desi in Hamburg.
I can't understand your English.
Sorry.
Yes.
You just have to trust that it's correct. The longer version is in the book. Worked at Desi in Hamburg, and from 1961 she programmed the analog computer EAI 231R. She made significant contributions to the design and operation of the Desi accelerators and storage rings. She lives and works in Hamburg. Dominique Gonzalez-Foerster is an artist working at the intersection between literature, theatre, cinema, architecture, and science, producing installations, dioramas, film, virtual reality, and other multimedia works. She lives and works in Paris and Rio de Janeiro. Geiger works in various media, including video, painting, photography, and collage. Born in Brazil to Polish parents, since the late 1960s, her work has addressed the complexity of Brazilian identity and the tension between the body and geopolitical mapping. She lives and works in Rio de Janeiro. Anne-Mie van Kerckhoven, sitting on my right. Her diverse oeuvre includes paintings, drawings, collage, and video. In 1981, Van Kerckhoven founded the experimental noise band Club Morale with Danny Davis, who's also here. From 1983 onwards, she produced drawings at the Laboratory for Artificial Intelligence at the Universität de Brussels, using their computers to make experimental animated films and other artworks. Katalin, now we messed up my paper, so I have to jump. Sobell, known for her pioneering use of technology in work that encompasses sculpture, video, and performance. Her interactive brainwave drawings, first conceived, used the you have to help me again. Electroencephalograph. Technology and closed-circuit video to affirm the existence of non-verbal influences on the communication between two people. She lives and works in New York. Tamiko Thiel, a digital artist whose work explores the relationship between place, space, the body, and cultural identity. In the early 1980s, Thiel worked with the Thinking Machines Corporation, founded by Danny Hillis, where she led the design teams working on the supercomputers connection machine CM1 and CM2. She lives and works in Munich. Katalin Ladik is known for her radical feminist performances in which she used her body and voice as medium and instrument. Ladik's oeuvre also includes poetry, collage, drawing, mail art, and photography. She lives and works in Budapest and Hvar, Croatia. And finally, Sylvia Roubaud, who was not in my press conference notes, so I now have to do a quick summary from the catalogue. Started using the started using the computer to produce prints in the late 1960s after gaining access to a machine at the German aerospace company Messerschmitt Bauhaus in Ottobrunn near Munich. With the assistance of Gerald Weiss, she produced a series of geometric patterns. She lives and works in Prien am Chiemsee in Germany. So this is a rather extensive panel, and we're assisted by Asia and Astrid for some translation.
Hi.
From the team of Kunsthalle Wien. Okay, so I guess I'll begin with Gudrun. My one question to all of you will be familiar because we did, in this book, you will find, one of my favourite parts of this book is the artist interviews, which were conducted by the teams, curatorial teams of Kunsthalle Wien and Mudam in Luxembourg. And I asked, I gave basically the only kind of brief really that I gave was that there should be like 2 questions that were somewhere posed within the interview, and one of them was, how did you come to work with computer technology or with the computer as a subject when that was? So Gudrun, could you tell us the story of how you and Ruth, or maybe you two do it together, I'm not sure, because we're showing collaborative.
She started.
Okay.
I started in Vienna at the...
Can you need a microphone for you?
Microphone. I've done it again. Don't worry. I started in Vienna at the Academy of Applied Art and with Oberhuber, and I started to do film and video, and I invited Ruth to work on a video with me. And then Ruth studied at Geiger, and he got all the new computers. And it was C64 and Commodore 64 and later Amiga 500. So we started to work together with his computers, trying to explore what can we do with it, how can we visually in a way exploit it, also how can we create content, not just using technology for technology's sake. And now I will ask.
Okay, just to make it clear, it was the C Commodore 64. Yeah, we are in this time at that time. Okay, so we had also I organized a digitizer which could make four images per second. So, and it was created in Vienna, this digitizer, therefore we had a digitizer and we had a small tablet to draw on it. So this was our equipment. Besides this, we had also a BTX computer, but these were not working because it was from the telecommunication Austria. And, but anyhow, we tried to do our best with these 8 colors, including black and white, what we had, and we were programming in BASIC. So we had this BASIC, we learned programming with the book on the knees and doing what we wanted to do, or what we had an idea of an outcome, and so we created. First, we participated in a theater piece from Hupsi Kramer, and later a Cerner class, and later we did this Plüschlauf. This was my error. I thought Plüschlauf was the first one. But the problem was probably that also later on it was not really, it was very well accomplished at the class of Peter Weibel. Yes, this was a highlight for us. And it was shown also, for instance, Plüschlauf was taken into the Dumont, Gabor and Vera Body. They made a Dumont edition, video edition, because Dumont had at that time video editions, and a book. So it was taken, but it was not accepted at the university very well. So it was not art. Computer is not art. Video is, yeah, it could be art. This was accepted.
That was accepted because of a traditional film, which went actually because of a change of technology into video more or less. Yeah, this is why it was accepted.
Yeah. Okay. Something to add from your side?
Not really.
Not really. Probably also, I did later, in 85, we worked together under the label Duplikat. We worked together until 91, and we used everything what we could have, and we used, of course, computer also, and video, and tried to come to a, for us, somehow aesthetically and art product with a content. This was very important. And for instance, I made then diploma, and this was again something which was not accepted. There was a jury at Peter Weibel. I was already working there, but also I did a diploma because I did I finished 2 studies. And when I did this diploma, it was an interactive computer video installation. And there was a bunch of professors, including all these famous architects and painters, and at that time there were 12 or 15 jury professors. And then at the end I got an average, yeah? My mark was average, yeah? No, I didn't fall through, but average. This work was shown at the Ars Electronica. It got an award. It was shown in Japan. It was shown in many cities, and even I got some money, honorary, for putting it. But this was the university at that time. Of course, now it changed a lot, and so.
I wanted to add something, sorry, because about the architects. My diploma or my video work was with a video installation, and I used to desynchronize the analog machines, and the architects wanted to fail me. And I was so lucky that Maria Lasnik was there, so I got actually a first, but they wanted to fail me. So I had a similar story. I didn't know actually about your story.
I also want to add something actually to my question, which is also, I think some of you will anyway cover it when you answer, but if you could describe for us, also paint a picture for us of the environment in which you were working. Like, what were you among several other female students also using computer technology, or were you alone in this?
This video, there were more female students. In this class from Peter Weibel at that time, they were after us. We made the first what we made then, or what we showed, or we had an exhibition with Plüschlaff, and then after it, they were two guys worked on it, but very on the side. Yeah, they were not very interested. They were not interested in programming and so, and not in dealing with it. We tried to get everything what we could have from this machine, yeah? And also later, like we did it always, yeah? We are always, or later also, we also worked on the edge, what the machine can give us, or what we can do with it, out of the range of the normal, a bit, yeah?
I wanted to say, we also get Apple computers,
Later.
partly sponsored later.
No, very later. No,
Very
no,
later,
first.
I know, but generally we got them sponsored, or we got sponsorship from Sony and so on. Because these people or these companies, when they're interested, it's later, I know, but working with us, you know. So that has changed because later on, mobile or all the big companies got the sponsorship from a big,
Indeed.
Yeah, BTX, we showed that at the IFABA in Vienna, and we instructed the Austrian president. Sorry,
It's very funny. We saw photos, we with cigarettes in the ferry, showing, she is showing, here is the cigarette behind, showing there what's going on, because we were one of the first who showed this from the outside, yeah? And so we were, it was, at that time, full of smoke, yeah? Completely crazy.
Another era, yeah.
No, but later we went on with several computers, and yeah, So until now.
Okay, thank you. Astrid, I wonder if you could pose the question for us.
Ja. Ich sage die Frage nochmal auf Deutsch. Ja. Michelle würde gerne von dir wissen, wie du mit Computertechnologie begonnen hast zu arbeiten.
Ich kam 1961 zu DESI. DESI ist die Abkürzung für Deutsches Elektronensynchrotron. Und da wollte man Beschleuniger bauen, Ringbeschleuniger, also geladene Teilchen, die in einem Ring kursierten. Und dazu brauchte man also auch Computertechnik. Damals gab es ja noch keine Digitalrechner. Und da hatte man einen sogenannten Analogrechner angeschafft. Der wurde betrieben mit so wie damals die Fernseher im Grunde. Und als ich dorthin kam, da habe ich dann gelernt im Laufe der Zeit, wie man diesen Rechner programmiert. Und am Ende dieses Jahres war ich sogar die Chefin geworden dieser Anlage und kriegte nach und nach Stellen genehmigt für Ingenieure, sodass wir richtig ein kleines Computerzentrum waren. Und was ich galt im Laufe der Zeit dann als Expertin für die Theorie der Magnetoptik. Magnetoptik brauchte man, weil man ja geladene Teilchen lenken wollte, und das war ähnlich wie wenn man mit Lichtoptik arbeitete. Man brauchte also Linsen sozusagen in Anführungszeichen, die fokussieren konnten und defokussieren und auch ablenkende Magnete, und die mussten gebaut werden und entwickelt werden. Und dann wurden im Laufe der Zeit eine Reihe von unterirdischen Ringen gebaut, in denen dann diese Teilchen kursierten und an geeigneten Stellen für Experimente zur Verfügung standen. Und nicht nur das, man wollte Grundlagenforschung machen, also im Gucken, was in Molekülen und solchen Dingen alles für Teilchen sind und wie viele davon. Und das war also sozusagen abgekürzt Grundlagenforschung. Und das macht man heute noch bei DESI. Ich habe neulich gelesen, dass man versucht, ein Mittel zu entwickeln, mit denen man an Corona rankommt. Ja, und da wurde auch ein bisschen gezeigt, wie die ungefähr aussehen können und gebaut sein können. Das war der Anfang. Und wie gesagt, zuerst war das ein ganz kleiner Zirkel, also den wir da hatten. Und dann musste man aber auch sogenannte Linearbeschleuniger machen. Das heißt, man an einer Stelle die geladenen Teilchen loslassen. Die gingen dann geradeaus bis zu diesem Ring und wurden dann da eingefädelt. Und ja, so müssen Sie sich das vorstellen. Und an geeigneter Stelle hat man sie wieder herausgelassen und dann hat man dort die Experimente aufgebaut. Und das war nicht auf die Dauer gesehen, nicht nur für Grundlagenforschung, sondern später, ich sage das jetzt ganz allgemein, hat man dann das auch für die Industrie zur Verfügung gestellt, dass die dort mit Hilfe von Leuten von DESI zusammen ihre Probleme lösen konnten. Wann willst du übersetzen?
Vielleicht mach es ganz kurz,
Ja.
dann, wenn du nämlich dann kurz darüber sprichst, was wir in der Ausstellung sehen, auch deine
Ja,
Zeit.
das kann ich.
I'm sorry because I'm don't have the right technical vocabulary, so I will just give a very brief summary of what Inge said. Inge was a trained engineer and she worked in Hamburg at DESI Institute, and she basically was responsible for programming an analog computer which did essential research, which was later then also used for industry and yeah. And I think now you will continue. She will continue also telling us about the drawings that we see in the exhibition.
Ja, dieser Analogrechner wurde programmiert. Man hat also die mathematische Formeln benutzt und der Rechner hatte für jede Rechenoperation sozusagen Hardware-Komponenten, die man dann verknüpft hat. Und das brauchte man im Wesentlichen eben zur Weiterentwicklung oder zur Lösung von dem Problem. Und und dann das Ergebnis, das waren immer einfache Kurven, so sagen wir mal ähnlich wie so ein Sinus oder so. Und dann ist es so gekommen, dass ein Künstler da aufmerksam geworden ist, auf was wir da auch gezeichnet haben und gedruckt haben. Und dann ist der auf die Idee gekommen, dass wir vielleicht sozusagen zweidimensionale Gebilde damit zeichnen könnten, die wir aber eigentlich bei Desi nicht brauchten, sondern weil die so hübsch aussahen. Und dann habe ich das dann gemacht. Ich war ja die Chefin und man konnte mir ja nicht reinreden. Und dann habe ich mich dafür interessiert. Und die meisten von Ihnen haben auch in der Schule gelernt, im Gymnasium, was Lissabon'sche Figuren sind. Das sind auch solche Kringel, also mathematisch beschrieben. Und die haben wir dann ja auch mal benutzt, um solche Bilder zu machen. Und ich habe aber auch andere Formeln, die wir eben für andere Zwecke bei Desi brauchten, die habe ich sozusagen missbraucht und habe dann diese Bilder, die da oben sind, gemacht. Und das fanden wir alle sehr schön, aber im Grunde wurde diese Form der Darstellung gar nicht gebraucht bei uns. Nicht? Insofern bin ich etwas überrascht, dass man das auch als künstlerisch bezeichnet. Ich war einfach nur neugierig auf diese Dinge.
Inge said that she was actually very surprised and that people were curious about what she was drawing there for technical matters. But Inge, what I forgot to say earlier, she became the boss of this part of the institute, and so therefore she was also allowed to basically do what she wanted. And there was an artist who discovered that the curves that they were drawing and plotting also look very beautiful, and that's why Inge decided to also start doing more of these drawings, and she was really surprised to actually have this also perceived in an artistic way.
Okay. Thank you, Inge. Dominique.
In my case, it's a bit more oblique or different, like I never learned coding, and I define myself like Annabelle as an experimental artist. I'm not very scientific, but my father was a programmer and took me to university in Grenoble to see the big computers, and also I think I got it's a kind of family contamination. And I was also always very much into biography, figures. I loved, at this time, I was a teenager, like a big Marie Curie fan. And so when I found the one day, I don't remember exactly how I found this biography, but it was this big Dorothy Stein biography about Ada Lovelace. At that time, I think the title is more like Ada Byron. I was totally fascinated, and also parallel to that, I knew about Ada language and had a kind of epiphany, thinking that it would be amazing to tell Ada's story in the Ada language. So then I found a programmer. It was a whole process to get this story and to get it into this language, but also a strong identification with Ada, which might sound a little, you know, but to me, like this, like she was the daughter of this writer, but at the same time into this very complex science and able to go through these ideas, and then slowly appearing like now she's a world-known icon, but in 88 it's not the case. Like we were also discussing that, like Alan Turing, at this time there was also a great biography and it was also very inspiring to me, but he wasn't the Alan Turing we know again now. So it's a mix of it comes from reading, family contamination, but also obsession for language. I think going beyond the kind of conceptual art that was more, not so obsessed with biographical elements, not so emotional, and trying to, it's a kind of portrait, kind of meta-portrait.
Thank you, Dominique. Annabella.
Well, when Michelle asks that, you see that each of us has a long story, very diverse from the others. I keep here listening. I am Brazilian, born in Brazil, a first generation, and this. The only difference is that since I was a child, my parents were talking not in Portuguese, so this already moves you into another cultures and so. But the question is, I started, let's say, early in art. But when you start, you don't know if you're going to be an artist. The indagation keeps all the time. But I started in 1950 to exhibit in saloons, and at the time I was very influenced by my teacher, who was a German teacher, in the figurative expressionist of Germany. In fact, this expressionism influenced the whole Latin America and Mexico, and very much, even the United States at that time, the 30s, 40s. Anyway, but I became an artist in abstraction for many years, and mainly making engraving, etching, and I had exhibited frequently in the biennials and so. But by the middle of the 60s, my work changed, and maybe I was exhausted of the questions, the concept of abstractionism. But at that time, I even was invited to write a book for the foundation in Rio about abstractionism in Brazil, which was the main avant-garde in the 50s. Well, my work changed, of course, and came into a very visceral kind of work. And by that time, I won a prize to travel with this exhibition of those visceral works. Anyway, and the travel was to Europe and to United States. So when it was the first time I went to Europe, and I went to London immediately, after I went to Holland also and Germany. But in London, I I was meeting some artists in a street, I don't remember which, in London, in the center of London. There was a little door there, which artists rented, I imagine, a narrow place, and it was written the computer place. And of course, I was curious, and just to give an information, besides this narrow entrance, there was another bookshop, very narrow, in which I bought some, not books, but small printed books by Kossuth, but he was writing about art and language. Well, and I had been also from studying linguistics in my own interest, and I found it incredible. In '69 that. So I got into this computer place, and they asked me what I would like to experiment, but I was not someone who understood that. I mean, it was very new for me. And they said, okay, so let's make a portrait of you. No? At the time, I must have been 30 or so in age. So this was my only work in the computer place. But my interest in working experimentally took me in the following years due to something that was changing inside myself in the direction that you can call now conceptual, intuitively, but understanding what was the experience. But with this, in '74, a friend of mine brought a porta-pack of video, another experience, and I took only in my work and my students, as I was teaching at the Museum of Modern Art, to experience the video art, which in itself, as the first that got that Lam Jun Park that I met also, he never said in which direction that video should be used. That's very interesting. He was so only this technological, but the concept of another nature of art was interesting. Not only interesting, the categories of art seemed on that time to dismantle, the artist against the idea of painting, because of this discussion about marketing, about the value of art, and it was in the United States very discussed by the artists. So when I made my videos, they invited me to take part in this first exhibition of video art in '75. I sent 3 works of theirs. And then the MoMA was interested in it, and I made an exhibition in '78 on video art. Was the first exhibition on video art at the MoMA, which meant a very good thing. On the same time, the curator for video, she was fighting against all the other sectors on painting. They didn't like video art. And in Brazil, when I showed my works in video also, I was very criticized by the critics. On a technical, that meant what does it mean, and things like that. So my whole life, I kept in my work in the print, and I was interested, as I am still now, on the geographical system, that I have to deep on it to understand, to bring this to my work, as some critics say that my work is not a geopolitical, but a geopoetic, which I find much better. Poetic meaning a language, not the poem. So this is what I have done up to now. I'm still interested very much in the geopolitical. Imagine now how I get confused with all that's happening and how we are suffering with all that now also. But my work developed also into some objects, not only etching, but into some that I call soft works. They are not software, they are like a panel, but like an hemisphere, the shapes. And that's what I have done.
It's a very diverse, you just gave me this amazing book, which I'm very proud to add to my library, which is, if anyone wants to have a look at it, they can see the diversity of Annabella Geiger's work. But
yeah, that's it.
That's another, I think that's definitely another exhibition. It's more than we can cover.
No, you know, each of us, we keep on talking, but it's not so interesting. It's just to know how we are working, or we are not working anymore. I am taking part, and of course that the age makes restrictions, even to come here to travel. I'm not complaining, it's wonderful. But it was
very inspiring for all of us.
Bringing a chair with a battery that is dangerous and things like that.
We really are honored. Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I have the microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merci.
Anne-Mie.
Yes, with me it's like that. As a student, we knew as a student in art, we knew young musicians, are scientists from university in Antwerp, and we did events together. And these people were Germanist, linguists, and at a certain in '77. When we all, in '74 we left our institutions, and in '77 Luc Steels was a good friend, one of these people. He asked me to make drawings for, to enlighten a little bit his thesis for doctorate, computer simulation of parsers, something very dry. And at that moment he had also a music group, Miss Halles Gelatis Tales, and they did very funny electronic music things. And it was something like Walking on the Moon, something very funny, and I had to make drawings of it on this music. Anyway, very soon after that he moved to MIT. And I visited him there in Boston, and he said there, when I'm going back to Europe, I will start a laboratory for artificial intelligence, which he did in '83. Actually, it was the first laboratory of artificial intelligence on the mainland. And he said, yeah, when I study, you can come and work on the computers. So that's what I did. But of course, we are still in contact after 45, 50 years. And what's so interesting in our exchange with each other is that we are both from the same generation, and artists and scientists, they both are dealing with the same fundamental questions about knowledge representation, about reality, how to deal with the future and with everything. And that's what we got. It was a very big thing of to go in the library and read these books and be inspired by the methods that they employed, these scientists, to go to the core. What is intelligence? What is creativity? What is the meaning of meaning and everything? You know, it still is of a very big influence of me to read these kind of books, and to incorporate these methods also in the way I'm making art.
Did you ever use the computer in music, actually? Because it's another huge area of that we didn't touch on in the exhibition, but the computer music is another huge field.
Yes, of course, because I make also a lot of animation movies, and I make the montage on the sound, you know, and then after a while the sound becomes music.
Hi everybody. Let's see. I started by making very early interactive sculpture in undergraduate school and graduate school with movable ceilings and interactive video installations, and then that was in Cornell, and I went out to Venice, California, and two engineers that I'd been working with at Cornell found themselves in Venice, California, and introduced me to systems analyst Mike Trivich. And he brought an alpha wave machine, an alpha biofeedback machine with him, and we tested it out, and I said immediately, well, why not have us both try it out at the same time, and how can we visualize that, Mike? And he said, well, why don't we use an oscilloscope? One person on the x-axis, one person on the y-axis, and when you put two inputs into the oscilloscope at the same time, it makes a circular configuration. It makes a Lissajous pattern. And that's an indication of both people putting out the same exact brainwave frequency and amplitude at the same time. And I said, well, there would be something to look at a squiggly line, but what about being video artists, putting a camera on our faces at the same time, so we could form a formula, we could formulate an internal and external video portrait, an electronic portrait of ourselves in thought. And then we realized that we needed access to more sophisticated EEG equipment, and I was working at UCLA at the time, and Barbara Brown suggested I call Dr. Barry Sturman, and he had access to the neuropsychology lab, and he had a PDP-12 computer, and he said, well, if we can, you know, feed the output of two people into this PDP-12, and it comes out and shows when two people are both emitting the same brainwave at the same time, and the flow from one to the other, then you can come back, and it did. And we came back repeatedly for a month or two, and then after that I said, well, it would be great to be able to transform these into graphics that people could choose the type of graphic that could express this synchronicity. And I discovered the first computer store in the whole entire world that opened in Santa Monica, and it was started by Dick Heiser from the RAND think tank, which was DARPA founded, and he opened up this first computer store, and it had a ground floor, a storefront window, and I invited people to participate who walked by the storefront window to come in, and we hooked them up to EEG equipment, and then gee, is the rest history? and on it goes. And I'm still doing it now with 4 people connected to 4 EEGs, and transposing, as I did then, transpose each brainwave into color and into sound. And I'm again doing the same thing, and this time alerting people to 40 hertz gamma waves, which stimulate the cerebrospinal fluid that goes up to your brain, that washes it of plaque, that causes Alzheimer's and dementia, and improves cognition, concentration, and creativity for all. And making a simulation on the wall of 4 contiguous columns that inform each of the 4 participants of their live waveform output, as well as a visual mapping that works together in color and form and sound, so that each person hears their own brain waves and together as a quartet makes sound together as well as the visual image together, and is informed by a signal for 40 hertz when they themselves are emitting 40 hertz output, and they can see that visually and hear it audibly and sonically.
Amazing. Thank you, Nina.
You're welcome.
I mean, the question is, if the question is still how did we start using computer for our work or artwork more explicitly, it's actually, for me, it actually didn't happen until the 90s. So in 1974, I first learned programming when I was a physics student at the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, high energy physics. As an engineer, as a physics student and then engineering student, then you're always having to program, and then for my master's, I was writing software for that. But this whole time I was in this environment, this technical environment, and there was graphics being done, but I wasn't really interested in art and visual images that were created with lines or with sort of solid colors or solid polygons. And so it really wasn't until I was actually first in art school over in Munich and started working with video, but on analog video editing machines. And then after graduating with a video installation in 1991, then my husband and I then moved to San Francisco and landed right in the middle of the World Wide Web, which had just come up. And I got hired to create what became the first metaverse, 3D metaverse for children, Starbright World, working together with Steven Spielberg. And I wasn't actually, I was a producer and creative director, so I had a team of 2 programmers and 2 illustrators who were creating the imagery, but then decided I wanted to start. That was finally the point, even though I had programmed computer graphics as part of my graduate studies at MIT in the architecture machine group. It was only really then in 1994 that I said, okay, now we can create 3D virtual worlds on the internet or just running locally on PCs, where we can incorporate, instead of just line work or polygons with flat colors, we can use textures, we can use drawings, or we can use photographs, and create a much richer visual scene, and it's a 3D scene. And so, I was doing 3D work as a product design engineer, and then when I started using computers mid-90s to do virtual reality, it was really because I was able to make visually rich spatial environments, virtual reality environments, and of course, with virtual reality, you can create entire universes. So it was for me really a tool to do a Gesamtkunstwerk, where you can have movement and sound and space and sound and put it all together. And that was the point where that was something you could really only do on a computer, unless of course you have tremendous amounts of money and someone says, here, take this building and turn it into an art installation, and no one was offering that to me then, let me tell you. So it was really that point there in the mid-90s where I said, okay, I'm going to start doing virtual reality as artworks, as virtual worlds, and haven't looked back.
Thank you, Tamiko. Azzy, are you going to pose the question first, or does Katalin already?
She knows the
Ja. Početi od početka 1946. godine. Ja sam kao devojčica, možda od 4 godine, našla u dvoru, kad smo se preselili u novu kuću, onda sam tamo našla neku mašinu, poljoprivrednu mašinu, zarđavu, na koju sam ja počela da se igram i proizvela sam veoma čudne zvuke i pevala sam, dala sam u ekstazu neku i fantastično sam improvizovala. Za mene je to prvo iskustvo da sam prestala da, kako da kažem, uspostavila neku drugu stvarnost, prešla sam u neko drugo psihičko stanje. Još jednom, izvinjavam se, moj materni jezik je mađarski, a pošto ne znam toliko nemački ili engleski, evo moja prevodlja, ona će mi pomoći, a mi ćemo govoriti na srpskom jeziku. Inače ja pišem, pošto sam najpre pesnikinja, pišem na mađarskom jeziku.
So Katalin just said that she is first and foremost a poet and that she usually writes in the Hungarian language, and she is not that, she would prefer to speak in Serbo-Croatian today, which I also understand, instead of English and German. So she said, to start from the beginning, that would be in the 1946, when she, as a girl of about 4 years old, found an agricultural machine in the yard of the new home where she moved with her family. And this machine was very rustic, but however, Katalin played with it. And by playing with it, she started, the machine started making interesting noises, and which Katalin started improvising with this, and through playing, Katalin also started singing, and for her this was like the first experience when she kind of transcended in another psychological condition, the psychological, reality.
To psihičko stanje koje ja tada nisam znala, samo sam osjetila da sam prešla u neku drugu stvarnost i da moj funkcioniše u jednom drugoj sferi.
So she just crossed somehow in another psychological condition, or so to say, another dimension, and she realized that her mind is actually functioning in this new other dimension.
Kad sam naučila da pišem, počela sam da pišem poeziju. I u poeziji sam našla isto tako jedno stanje psihičko koje je potpuno drugačije od realnog sveta.
And then when she started writing, she actually started writing poetry, and in poetry is also this kind of psychological condition that she also discovered.
U 11. godini su me otkrili, onda se osnovala u radio stanici glumačka grupa, dramska grupa, i mene su kao 11-godišnju devojčicu odabrali, i od 11. svoje godine ja sam igrala pred mikrofonom, ali improvizirajući tekst. Tada još nije bilo magnetofona, uživo smo radili programe.
So, and when she was 11 years old, there was a radio station that had like a drama theater group, and when she was 11 years old, Katalin started playing with the microphone and improvising in front of the microphone, because every performance was actually live back then.
Onda sam shvatila da imamo nešto u glavi, u mozgu, koje imamo zapravo dve dimenzije. Znači, jedno u normalnom životu i jedno kada se strašno skoncentrišemo, onda ide sve brže i tačno ide sve.
And then actually Katalin realized that we have in our brain like two dimensions. The one is two parallel dimensions. The one is from our normal everyday lives, and the other one is when we are very, very focused on something, and in this other dimension, things start going really fast, and yeah.
I kasnije kad sam saznala da postoji levi i desni deo mozga, onda sam stvarno ispitivala sebe, studirala sebe, kada mi radi desni, a kada levi deo mozga.
And then she realized that we have a left and right side, brain sides, and she was constantly questioning and testing herself, okay, when I'm using the left and when I'm using the right side of my brain.
A pošto sam bila veoma zauzeta poslom, onda porodica, dete, imala sam vrlo malo vremena za stvaralaštvo, za pisanje poezije.
And she was very busy with her work, with family, with her child, and she didn't have a lot of time for the creativity or like to work on her poetry.
I onda sam trenirala, zapravo stalno sam ja trenirala, možda ne svesno, ali kad već u 20. godini sam se već svesno trudila da se skoncentrišem, da za pola sata ili za 1 sat umem da napravim neko delo, baš stvaralačko delo, umetničko delo.
And then she started in her 20s, she was constantly working on herself and training her mind. That, for example, in half an hour, she would push herself to focus and to make an artwork, to make a creative piece.
Do 1968. godine ja nisam ni čula za kompjuter.
Up until 1968, Katalin never heard about a computer.
Naravno nisam ni videla.
But also she never saw one.
Da. I onda od 68. ja sam svesno već koristila svoj glas, koristila sam tehniku, svoju glasnu tehniku što sam naučila u radiostanici i 70. godina sam prvi put našla u radiostanici u studiju te kružne, cirkularne,
electronic circuit.
Da, to sam našla. I od tehničara sam dobila 11 komada. I ja sam počela onako iz fantazije da improvizujem i da otpevavam i da otkrijem tu tajnu koja se nalazi u tim kružnim cirkularnim predmetima.
And then 1970 she came back to this radio station and this is where she discovered the electronic circuits that Katalin is using in her practice, and the technician there actually gifted her 11 pieces of electronic circuits, and that's when Katalin started improvising with them.
Mada sam ja 60. godina već koristila pisaću mašinu za vizualnu poeziju i onda sam odvojila i te studijske snimke i žive performanse, to je već sound poezija. I tako sam odvojila poeziju na nekoliko svoja medija. Znači pisana poezija, fonična poezija i vizualna.
Okay, and so already in the 1960s, Katalin kind of made like 3 categorizations of her poetry: visual poetry, sound poetry, and written poetry.
I to je, mislim, to radim i danas, tako da pišem poeziju, knjigu, prozu kao književnik, onda radim performanse gde koristim i vizualne efekte i zvučne efekte, ali ne više, ne puno tehnika. I performance, naravno, svoje telo kao umetnički predmet, kao instrument.
And this is what Katalin has been doing to this day also, like writing visual poetry, writing also, writing visual poetry, but also working with sound effects, and in her performances with the body, where she's treating body as an art instrument.
Od tehnike, to jest od kompjutera, ne koristim jako puno.
And she's not using a computer that much.
Ne puno, samo toliko koliko bi mogla da ostvarim ono što zamišljam svojim glasom.
Just the part that she needs to help her create things with her voice.
Toliko.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Katalin. We are already over time, I'm sorry. So it's Sylvia. Briefly, please. Sorry, because my one question took up a whole time of our panel. But could could you tell us?
I'm not so good in speaking English, but I have some written some ideas from me, and so I will try to read it. And after in 1971, I was studying at the Munich Academy of Fine Arts, painting. In the same year, in 1971, the company Messerschmitt-Bölkow-Blom, speciality, he head of the culture department, Dr. Winfried Fischer, wanted to start a project group that would create computer graphics using large plotters and computers as a part of the cultural program associated with the 1972 Olympic Games in Munich. 4 men mathematicians from MBB were chosen for this, and I was invited to join as a trained artist. They contacted other artists and asked them to take part, but no one accepted, because at this time computer art was for them not real art. And based on my ideas and sketches, the mathematician Gerold Weiss would program IBM 360 mainframe computer using the Fortran 4 language. The program was stamped on punch cards, transferred to magnetic tape, and then realized using the plotter. This drafting machine was a Kongsberg King Martin, a high precision flatbed plotter, 2 and 6 meters. This drafting machine gave me the opportunity to manually intervene in this visual event during the drawing process, so it was possible to influence and alter the results based on my first impression. The MBB computer graphics was first shown in an exhibition at the MBB company in 1972, and then again as part of the cultural program during the Munich Olympics. The following years, it was shown at the exhibition Tendency 5 at Zagreb, and to this day in various museums around the world. In 2016, one of my computer graphics works was recorded as a part of a BA project at the University of Bremen with the aim to teaching art in museums. The starting point of my experience with the computer, because it was the only time I worked with computer. I'm painting, abstract painting, since today, and with the computer, the starting point with the experience of computer graphic was that of an abstract painter confronted with a new instrument. For me, the question is, what's the difference between free painting and computer-generated works? Also, freely designed computer graphics are made using different materials. The result is still dependent on the artist concept. The artist behind the work is expressing the same thing they would with brush and paint. They would have with brush and paint. My painting is spontaneous, but since this early 70s, my style has developed toward one of greater rigor and work, and I work in a more precise and controlled way. This I wrote, and now I can speak in German. If you have questions.
I think, do we have any time for questions or? From the audience? Or, well, basically we allowed some time to have a drink. So we basically have time to either to ask formally questions now, or we could all adjourn to the bar or to the back of the room, I guess is where the bar is. And I invite you all to pose your questions to the artist, to us, with a glass in your hand.
Michelle?
Yeah?
Yes.
One last request from all speakers and artists. I think there's a desire for a group photo. So yeah, after that formality is done, we will all raise a glass. Thank you.